On this episode of Cyber Sentinel, we're going to talk about what is EOS. Hello, I'm Alan Adcock. I'm CEO of ASC Group. We're a cybersecurity firm based here in Woodstock, Georgia, and this is Cyber Sentinel. On Cyber Sentinel, we talk about ways to improve your business and how to keep yourself cyber safe. On today's episode, I'm joined by Brett Stewart of Track First. Brett, introduce yourself for us.
Thank you, Alan. What I do is I coach business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs in their teams, and I coach them on how to use a system called EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I ran my own businesses for 18 years, and what I found is that it's hard to keep a business growing profitably, build a great team, and maintain some control over your life and your personal freedom. So I ended up using this system in my business, kind of fell in love with it, so now I help other people do it in theirs.
Awesome. Let's get to the first question.
What is EOS?
ASC Group was introduced to a book called Traction by Gino Wickman some years ago, and EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. There's a lot of the ideas in this book that on the surface are pretty simple, but trying to implement those throughout an organization gets really complex, and but it can be a real factor for growth for those organizations that successfully implement it. When companies and business owners run into issues doing the implementations, they often reach out to people like Brett, who can help with that implementation. So Brett, tell us about implementing EOS and how that works.
Yeah. So you're right, EOS is simple. It's kind of like a lot of technologies you'll come across. The more simple it is, the more likely you are to implement it fully and use it more effectively. When we look at the very highest levels, what we want to do with EOS is really three things. One is help businesses and all their employees get crystal clear on their vision. And I don't mean fancy theoretical vision, but I mean getting real clear on where we're going and how we're going to get there. Secondly is to get traction in terms of discipline, accountability, execution, metrics, all those things that help us dig a little every day. And third is healthy, building healthy, functional, cohesive teams. So those are the three goals, and when we get those, we get what we want from our businesses. Like you said, EOS is pretty simple, so we follow a simple process to implement a set of tools that help us strengthen each component of your business. We call them key components. So if you think about a football coach, when he goes to a new school, he doesn't say, what are we going to do? He says, I got a system. Here's how we strengthen offense and defense and special teams and recruiting and strength and conditioning or what have you. And my system works because I know, I've been using it for 20 years and it works. I'm kind of like that coach. I come with a system that we've put collectively as EOS implementers in about 7,100 companies. So I know it works, but we got to fit it to that team, to their goals. So we use that system to strengthen, again, each key component of the organization so they can execute against their goals when they want to.
So we often think about coaching in terms of athletics, but certainly in business, coaching can be a really critical factor in helping companies to change the way their company operates and to get to that growth stage.
How does IT infrastructure impact the EOS Data Component?
We've been working on our EOS implementation for some time, and as we worked through that, we realized that we had some needs to deploy software to track things like KPIs, scorecards, measurables. Brett, why don't you tell us about different ways that you've seen other companies use software or different tools to help implement that system?
Yeah, what gets measured gets managed. Okay, so if you want people to really drive a process, you have to have some way to measure that. My first day with any of my new clients, we start building a scorecard and metrics that eventually go out throughout the business. What I find is that businesses that have a better, more robust, again, simple but effective IT infrastructure are just able to accelerate that process of measuring a lot faster. If you think of, for example, your sales process, what you want are sales, but what you need to manage is your activity that you're doing this week to produce those sales.
Right.
So if a company has a CRM and a nice IT infrastructure to manage that and gather data, they can just get up and running a whole lot faster. And so we use the systems to make sure that we got the right focus on the right things each and every week.
So have you had any companies that have implemented EOS and used metrics and KPIs and actually done live display in the office of those metrics?
Yeah. So Again, the more we can take this to a day-by-day thing, the better off we are. So if you think back to that sports analogy, you have your goal that you're trying to reach, but you have your daily training plan. And so if we think of things again like, sales calls is a classic one. How many sales calls did I make today? How many proposals?
Sure.
When I think about contracting businesses, how many safety inspections did we make? So that's more of a weekly metric. Net promoter score is something we can look at every day. We can have that up on the board. So yeah, the more we make it daily and we get focused on what are the activities that produce the results we want, the better off we are.
How does IT infrastructure impact the process component?
So here at ASC Group, we do a ton of documentation. We document our client systems as well as our own internal processes. There's a process component to EOS that talks all about documenting processes and then making sure that that documentation is followed by everyone, followed by all, I think is the terminology out of the book. So talk a little bit about that process component and how that works.
So not many people got into business, started their own organization, grew it so they could document processes. Not many business owners love that. On the other hand, if we don't have processes, it's really hard to grow and scale our organization. It's hard to train people. It's hard to measure because we don't know what activities to measure. So we need a strong process component. The problem or the difficulty is that when a lot of people think process, they think a 100-page procedure manual. Okay? That's not what we want. What we want is 2 to 3 page checklist that says when we do this process at ASC, this is the way we do it every time. And that could be finance, that could be backing up your systems, that could be your sales process, that could be how you recruit and retain people. So it doesn't matter what it is, we need a clear process. When we have a better technology environment, what it allows us to do is put in more data, more detail, more clarity around that process without it being cumbersome. You can imagine a 100-page process might be really thorough, but nobody will use it.
Correct.
On the other hand, if you have the right technology, you can have a nice, simple 1 or 2 page process with hyperlinks that go to training and things, so you get the best of both worlds. And when we get the best of both worlds, again, all kinds of good things happen. Businesses scale easier. If you ever sell your business, there's another zero at the end, because you have good processes.
We've talked in the previous episodes about that business valuation part of this, and that processes, and they really look at the leadership team and the ownership and how involved is that owner in the day-to-day operations of the firm when they try to do that valuation. So that's one of these places where documentation and the processes you have in place become really important.
I mean, when somebody buys your business, they're buying a stream of cash flow, and the more we can do with EOS or anything else to ensure the continuity of that, then the more valuable your business is. And along the way, it's a lot more fun to run. So
that's right.
It's a win all around.
So that's all we've got for this episode of Cyber Sentinel. I want to thank Brett Stewart for being our guest on this episode. Thank you, Brett. If you have any questions for Brett, his contact information will be below. And as always, if you have questions that you want to see us address on the show, reach out to us on social media at #CyberSentinel.